Hello, my name is Kelsey Jones, and I am the International Admissions Counselor at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. That is a university located in the United States, in the state of Wisconsin, close to the largest cities of Chicago and Minneapolis, just for reference. I've been invited today by Minds of Jamaica and Kamir Ricketts to talk about the opportunities for studying abroad in the United States. This presentation is specifically for students looking to obtain bachelor's degrees or lower at the undergraduate level. We hope to do other sessions and workshops and presentations for Minds of Jamaica members at a later date. So during this presentation, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to get a lot of those questions you may have answered if you've been considering studying in the US. First off is going to be the applications. One thing you need to understand is all of the different types of applications there are. Deadlines. When should I apply? How should I apply? What types of universities can I apply for? That's all going to be running through your head when you start to look at applications. First thing I always say, try to start looking at schools that you're considering, and then what are their deadlines. Different types of schools have different types of deadlines. A lot of students typically do not know the difference between early decision and early action. For a lot of students, early decision is a binding contract with an institution, meaning that if you've applied to that institution for early decision and you are accepted, you now have a binding contract with that institution that you will go to that institution. That differs from early action because early action means a student can apply to that university, be accepted, and amongst a variety of other students, get some benefits to applying early from that institution, typically large scholarships, honors programs, things of that nature, priority housing, things like that. But there's no binding contract attached to early action. Then, of course, there's regular decision. Typically, students that meet the academic rigor of an institution but aren't quite as high achieving as some of those early action students do regular decision. And then, of course, there's rolling admissions. My university is a rolling admissions university, meaning that we accept applications all throughout the year, typically about a month or two before the start of the semester, just so that students have time to obtain a visa. And so you can really apply to any institution throughout that time. Now, with any of these deadlines, a big part of it is going to be when you can get scholarships. If you are a student that is depending on scholarships, these deadlines are going to make a huge difference. So getting in contact early with the institution that you're considering will be very, very important. Now, of course, the types of applications there are. A lot of students may have heard of the common application. With the common application, that is an application where you submit your application on a website, and through any of the institutions that are part of the Common App, you can send those out directly to those institutions. That is a very popular option with the students. Coalition application is very similar to the Common App in a sense, but there are a few member institutions within a coalition application. The University of Carolina system and the University of California system are both under that coalition application system, meaning that you apply to one University of California school, and then you can apply to all of them at the same time with that coalition application. Then, of course, there's individual school applications, such as my institution, where you apply directly to that institution through their direct portal or some online platform that they provide to their students through a link or on their website as well. All of those types of institutions will be important to understand what types of applications are available out there. Now, of course, you're thinking, now I know what school I want to go to, I know the deadlines, I know when to apply. What other necessary materials are there? You've gone through the application and everything, but you're still not done once you hit that submit button. Typically, there's a few different things that you also need to supply to institutions for the application process. First, of course, is typically an application fee. Now, there are a lot of institutions out there that are waiving application fees for international students, but as you may or may not know, there are over 4,700 institutions in the United States for higher education. So not all of them are doing that for the application fee. There can be benefits to that. Some institutions may charge an application fee, but do not charge an international student fee on the back end. Some institutions don't charge an application fee, but charge a larger international student fee on the back end towards your bill and tuition and fees later. So it kind of benefits to both of those. But if you're the one who do not want to pay that money up front, sometimes you can just talk to an institution and say, hey, there's a certain financial situation I'm going through. Is there any way that you can waive the application fee? Discuss that with the institution that you're considering because of that. Application fees are also not standard across the board, meaning that different institutions will charge different prices. Typically, the larger the institution, the higher the price will be. A lot of times, most institutions aren't going to be more than $100. Just to kind of give you perspective, a lot of institutions are kind of in that 30 to 50 range that you're considering, as well as some maybe a little bit higher than that. But most aren't going to be above $100. Next, transcripts, your grades. That is a huge part of this process. A lot of our institutions are high academic rigor, and we want to understand that you are a student that will not only be able to be successful at an institution from an academic standpoint, but that you also stand out from the rest. You have to understand that applying to college in the U.S. is a competitive process. So we want to see how you stand out against other students. Of course, a lot of these transcripts are going to need to be official, meaning that they need to be sent a certain type of way, typically directly from the high school or secondary school that you attended. And if you're mailing them, they need to be in a sealed envelope, unopened by you, the student. They must come directly from the institution to be considered transcripts. Some institutions are a bit more flexible, and again, you want to ask them about their processes for taking transcripts. Typically, from students from Jamaica, we waive English proficiency, so having transcripts that are not in English are typically never a problem. So that's not something you have to worry about as an international student. Letters of recommendation. Some institutions require letters of recommendation, others do not. My institution typically only looks at letters of recommendation for more borderline students, meaning if you're just right on the edge of our academic rigor standards, but we think you still might be a good student, that is where letters of recommendation may come into play. Typically, students will ask teachers, professors if they took any college-type courses, community members, people who have had a large impact on their personality and know their character and can really speak to that is what we look for letters of recommendation. Test scores. A lot of students are really, really worried about test scores. I can tell you the test score thing can certainly vary per institution. As I was telling Kamir a bit earlier, SAT and ACT is really something that a lot of students perceive as being a mandatory requirement for all institutions. And that just isn't true. A lot of institutions don't accept SAT or ACT scores or what is called SAT and ACT optional, meaning you can utilize those scores for scholarship opportunities to be higher competitively against other students, but they're not mandatory requirements for admissions. Other institutions may require that and use that for another mark as far as English proficiency. So again, always talk with the institution about those opportunities and what they expect from a test score standpoint. Financial documentation. Financial documentation is important for two reasons. One, it lets an institution know that you can afford to attend their institution. A lot of students think when they see the sticker price on the institution, they have to pay that all out of their pocket. Your financial documentation through affidavit of support, which is typically someone sponsoring you, like a family member or a parent, community member, as well as a bank statement, which is your bank statement showing how much money is in your bank account. A combination of those, as well as any scholarships you receive, any grants you receive, any type of financial aid that you may receive, even from your home government or community members, will all go on a document called the I-20. And the I-20 allows us to create a form that we will give to the U.S. government will have during your visa process. So that I-20 is important. But we cannot create the I-20 until we have sufficient financial documentation showing that you can actually afford to attend the university you've been admitted to. Essays. My institution is essay optional, meaning that we have an essay and that usually goes into play for students that are more borderline. Some institutions are very critical with their essays, meaning that it is a large portion or a very important part of the application process. Typically, you will see that with private institutions, and I'll talk about essays in the next section a little bit. There also may be other supplemental materials as well that you may need to be looking for. Again, talk with the institutions, get in contact with their admissions counselors, look on their website. A lot of that information can be found there as well. Essays. Now, a lot of students are really worried about essays, but essay writing can be really fun. A lot of students think that we are looking for, as admissions counselors, the most perfect essay, everything you've done from an academic standpoint, from a community standpoint, and everything like that. But we like to see a bit of creativity as well. So it's really an opportunity to exhibit your writing skills. That's what they're really looking for. And so I've had students who have written about sports, who has written about different things. One student wrote about how they associate different cultures with different foods. And so some of their favorite foods are how they associate different cultures and things like that. We really like to see those different types of essays from students because typically we get a lot of students who are talking about how great they are academically, what they've done in school. And it's not that those aren't important and that we aren't proud of you for those opportunities that you've been able to accomplish, things of that nature. But remember, there are typically thousands of students, hundreds of students applying for institutions, and you really want to stand out in a completely different way. So this is an opportunity to really set yourself apart in something completely different. Another thing that we see a lot is students don't revise and proofread as much as they should. The amount of times I've seen an essay or colleagues at different institutions have seen an essay where they say, hey, University of Michigan, I'm looking to really go into your program, this, that, and the third, and my institution doesn't have that program, and I'm also the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. So that doesn't look good from a student if you sent me an essay that isn't even addressed to my institution. So that's another thing to always do. Take the time to revise and proofread. It's important, especially at institutions that require an essay. This will be important because it's a large part of their process. And again, just to go back to that first point, a lot of these essays can be specific questions or generic personal statements. So that means where an institution has asked you a specific question and wants you to touch on that, or they're giving you free rein to kind of talk about something. And usually the generic personal statement are the ones where you have a bit more rein to be a bit more creative, show your independent thinking skills and creative writing skills, and really exhibit those and stand out. Cost. I know that's a big, huge concern for you. That's a big, huge concern for your parents or anyone else helping to sponsor your opportunity to study in the U.S. for higher education. Now, there's typically two things that I'll talk about when it comes to students, but first I want to talk about direct costs when it comes to students. Direct costs are those large fees that you're going to see. Typically, tuition, room and board, meal plan, direct fees to the institution like book fees, international student fees, healthcare fees, health insurance, any other personal expenses that we may consider. Those are usually direct costs and typically tie into that full amount that you see, that sticker price that you'll see on the website or any information you get from an institution. When you're choosing an institution, cost will matter. So for a lot of students, I tell them, make sure to see what the true cost of an institution is. An institution's full sticker price may be $70,000, and you may have received $40,000 in scholarships. That means $30,000 you'll still have to pay out of pocket, and that might be your true cost. But from another institution, their sticker price may be $40,000. You've received $15,000 in scholarships or grants or anything like that, and so your true cost is actually only $25,000. So all of those things may come into play when you start to consider institutions. My institution is only about $27,000 total, where we are able to award scholarships around $10,000 to $15,000. So a lot of our students' true cost are only about $15,000 a year or less. So those are things to consider when you're looking at different types of institutions and their cost. Financial aid. Obviously, the cost may be high. The institution that you've always dreamed about, you've been able to get into, that you're worried you're not going to be able to pay for, know that there are opportunities for that. And I know for Minds of Jamaica members, there's going to be opportunities to see different financial aid opportunities that they'll have available. So you definitely want to be able to check that out if you'll have a chance to become a Minds of Jamaica member. But there are different types of scholarships out there and other types of financial aid. Institutional scholarships. Those are typically scholarships that an institution gives out directly to a student. A lot of times it's based on merit, meaning your academics, English proficiency, SAT or ACT scores, if they require them, all go into play for some type of merit-based scholarships. And depending on the institution, that can vary. There are other types of institutional scholarships that can have other types of criteria. For instance, my institution has a scholarship that is solely based on being active in the community, engaged as an international student, that you can get up to $4,000 a year. It has nothing to do with merit or anything like that. It's participating in various events on campus. Institutions may have those types of scholarships out there, and so you want to ask them about those that they may award directly. Outside scholarships. You may be part of a church that gives scholarships to students to study abroad. Your government be able to give you scholarships for that. You may be wanting to work for a certain company that you did an internship while you were in high school, who may sponsor you for a scholarship. Any of those outside scholarships you can bring in from your country or anything like that that we can accept. There's also outside scholarships within the U.S. as an international student you can get. A lot of institutions have what is called a foundation or something of that sense. And maybe not called the foundation, but something of that, where alumni, donors, sponsors have given money to the institution in this foundation to give to international students or various other students that meet certain criteria. And each outside scholarship can vary for different things, so you want to be cognizant of that. And again, ask your institution what those opportunities are. Needs-based financial aid. This is rare, but there are institutions out there that do give need-based scholarships. And the reason why it's rare is because it is hard for us as a United States to really determine a student's needs as an international student. Typically, you need to show in that I-20 that you can pay for school, so it's hard to really show that financial aid is a huge concern for you. In the United States, we have something called the FAFSA that domestic students utilize, that we can tell that. It's based on parents' taxes and things of that nature, but we don't really have that for international students. But if an institution has need-based scholarships, talk to them about what you need to qualify for those, because those are opportunities. Borrowing options. No student wants to take out loans. So if you need to take out loans, be strategic about that. If you can take out governmental loans that are typically better for students than private loans. Again, exhaust all of your financial aid options, what we call free money, before you start to explore loans. But if loans are the thing, talk to your institution to see what those opportunities may be as well. Work study on campus and payment plans. For a lot of students, even if they can show that sticker price, it's a large burden to pay everything at once. And so payment plans is an option for students to pay that semester price throughout the semester. You typically would talk with the financial aid or business services office of an institution about those opportunities. Work study is an opportunity to work while studying your academics in various offices throughout campus to be able to earn money towards your direct costs, those tuition fees and large costs as well. Now, in the United States, one thing that we always talk to students about is determining your best fit. What is the best institution for you? Not the best institution out there based on rankings, based on things you've heard in the news, based on their prestige or brand or anything like that. But what is the best institution for you? And there are a lot of factors that are going to determine that. And so I've listed quite a few here that I want to go over in a bit. First is going to be academically. Based on your academic profile, what institutions do you generally or realistically qualify for? That's something that you want to understand. There's also various, once you're at the institution, that's going to matter. Class size. Many students start off when they're going through secondary school or higher, are in classes that are maybe 10 to 20 people at most. And then they get to a university where they're taking 100, 200, 300 size classes, and they're overwhelmed. So those are the type of things that you want to consider when you're looking at institution. Graduation rate, placement rate, average class size. If you're in a major and you really, really want to do research, what type of undergraduate research opportunities for there? Do we have to pay for it? Are there grants available for undergraduate research? What is the acceptance rates of these institutions? If I'm going to do undergraduate research, what types of research are professors at that university specializing in? Usually, institutions will have that listed on their website. So those are things to consider. And then, of course, a lot of students are going to university for job opportunities later. And so they want to know, what are the realistic internship opportunities once I'm there? Those are things to explore as well. Academics is a huge part of the process. It's the most important part, obviously the priority when studying in higher ed. But we also want you to get the most out of your experience and to feel welcome and to feel supported at a university. So Student Support Services is another great resource for students when determining your best fit. So understand what their international office looks like, who the resources there and how they can help you, as well as other resources on campus and what they can do for you. Multicultural student services, academic advising and tutoring. If it's okay to struggle in your first year or so, you can ask for help. Those are what those resources are for. If you know the career field that you're going into, or you have no clue and want some guidance, career advising is a great place for that. Mental health is something that we've, as a society, have been paying more attention to. And so counseling centers at various institutions can be there to help you as well. Disability services, Pride Center for students that are of different sexual orientations. All of those things are there to help students and support them during their time. And as international students, you need to know that you are supported as well. Extracurricular activities. We want you to have fun. We want you to make the most out of your experience and really engage. Remember, you are studying abroad. Even though you have an opportunity to study abroad as well, you are choosing to go from your home country to a whole nother country to spend anywhere from 2 to 4 to as many as 10 years in a different country doing that. So we want you to have a great time while you're there as well. Athletics, theater, clubs and organizations, resident life, weekend activities, on-campus jobs. As international students, you can only do on-campus jobs as F1 visa students as part of your visa regulations. But a lot of great opportunities to get involved in the campus and in the community as well. For instance, my institution has over 200 plus organizations and clubs. Residence life with various styles based on your grade or with your situation in, as a student. Because we get students of all ages. So there may be a student who is a traditional 20 to 24-year-old looking to go straight into college, or someone that is 30 plus, that has a family that also wants to come and study in college, and we can accommodate both. And a lot of institutions have those opportunities as well. Location, location, location. This is always important for students. A lot of times students, when they come to study in the US, they have family members in certain areas, they know of certain areas, they know of an opportunity there for certain areas. So with that location, you need to understand what it's going to look like. When you're applying to institutions, ask, what is there to do? My institution has an opportunity to speak to current students to ask them these type of questions. Are you in an urban area? Are you in a rural, very country type of area, residential, industrial? What are all of the opportunities there, as well as what are the costs of living? If I decide to live off campus or if I'm living on campus, all of those things will matter when it comes to determining your best fit. Rankings. Now, me personally, I'm not a huge fan of rankings. Why? Because the United States doesn't have one sole body to go to as far as universal rankings. But there are a variety of rankings out there that you can go to look to start to get an idea of what these institutions are able to do, how high they're ranked, and what you may be looking for. But I always tell students, that's a starting point. Once you see that, go explore. Don't trust rankings just on their own. Start to talk to those institutions directly. So these are some of the things that I've listed that you can start to look for when it comes to rankings. Another point about cost that I want to talk about is direct costs versus indirect costs. With direct costs, that's that large stuff that I was talking about. Usually scholarships, out-of-pocket costs are what you will use to pay for direct costs. A lot of students assume that I can get a job and pay for indirect costs, and that's usually not true. With indirect costs, you use a job and stuff for that. Direct costs, you cannot use a job to pay for. Typically, you only work 20 hours a week. It's a low paycheck. You even have to pay taxes on those as well. So it's not a large amount of money to pay towards tuition and fees and all of that type of stuff. Usually for indirect costs such as books, food, going out with your friends on the weekend, excursions to larger cities, those type of things. Even potentially to pay for an off-campus apartment at a cheaper rate for students. Those are those costs that you need to consider as well. Now, as I said, determining your best fit is the most important part of this process, and you need to understand that you need to take the time, I cannot stress enough, take the time to choose an institution that fits your personality best. Not your friends, not even a brother or sister that may have gone ahead of you, but what suits you best and is going to help you be successful. Take the time out to talk to these institutions. I'm a great resource. Minds of Jamaica and Kamir Ricketts has asked me to be a mind as well, and I'm happy to do so. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be a resource to anybody who is looking to study in the U.S. and navigate those pitfalls that you might not get from other counselors or from websites directly. So please feel free to contact me or get on Minds of Jamaica and utilize them as a resource to get in contact with me as well. If you have questions, here's my information. Thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you.